We had some fun in our last few videos playing with the Revolution tool, but let's go back to our extrusion tool. So let's go to Create Document, and let's try to use the extrusion tool to create a sword. So we'll call it sword and hit OK. And I want to start with the blade of a sword. So let's start a new sketch. Let's go to our top view, select top on our view cube, and grab the line tool. And when I think of what the blade of a sword looks like, looking at it from the top view, I see kind of like a diamond shape. So let's go ahead and sketch that out. I'm going to draw out this sort of diamond looking shape. Don't worry about making it perfect. Just make sure you click on that last dot and make it a full shape. And once we have this sort of diamond looking shape, we are going to go back in and make it look perfect. And to do that, we're going to use a new tool called construction lines. So go ahead and select construction in your ribbon and make sure your line tool is still selected. And what I want you to do is I want you to draw a line from the left corner of your diamond to the right corner of your diamond. And you'll notice this line is a dotted line and not a solid line. That's how we tell the difference between a construction line and an object line, or just one of these regular lines. And construction lines are really cool. What they basically do is they allow you to manipulate your 2D geometry without affecting your 3D features when you finish your sketch. And so let's do the same thing. Let's connect the top of our diamond to the bottom of our diamond. And then I want to make sure my construction lines are horizontal and vertical. And so I'm going to find my vertical constraint in my ribbon, and I'm going to select my vertical line. And I'm going to make sure that it's perfectly vertical. And I'm going to do the same thing with this horizontal line. I'm going to find my horizontal constraint, and I'm going to select this line, and I'm going to make sure it's perfectly horizontal. And the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure each one of these outside solid lines are equal. And so I'm going to go in and find my equal constraint. And I'm going to tell these two lines on the left to be equal. And I'm going to tell these two lines on the bottom to be equal. And just to be sure, I'm going to tell these two lines on the right to be equal as well. Then I'm going to grab my point tool, and I'm going to put it down right in the intersection between these two construction lines. And I'm going to tell that point to be coincident with the origin. And so now that I've got it locked in place, all I need to do is give it its size dimensions. And so I'm going to find my dimension tool, and I'm going to tell from left to right this diamond to be 3 inches wide. And I'm going to tell it from bottom to top to have a height of 0.75 inches. And now we have a fully constrained diamond. And so we can finish our sketch, go to our home view, and we can extrude this shape up. But actually, real quick, before we extrude, notice how only the outline of the diamond shape is extrudable, and not the smaller shapes created by the construction lines within. This is a very important concept. Any shape that's outline is made with construction lines cannot be extruded. So if I click on the shape to extrude, you will notice I am only extruding the solid line shapes that make the outline, which is exactly what I wanted to extrude to make the shape of the blade of a sword. And if I think about the length of a sword, I think I want to make this depth about 30 inches. Hit enter, and if I zoom out, I can see kind of what happened here. And it kind of looks like the blade of a sword. But to make it look even more like the blade of a sword, let's learn another new feature, the draft feature. And what this does is it allows us to taper our angle out or in. So I can change directions and allow it to go inwards and make this sharp shape, or outwards and make this sort of obtuse shape. And to give you a better idea, let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's make it 1 degree. And so you can see if I hit enter, it tapers out, but not quite as far. And if I change the direction, you can see how it tapers inwards. I want it to taper outwards. And if I look at it, that's still a little bit too wide for me. I'm going to make it about half that. I'm going to tell it to be 0.5 degrees outward and hit enter. And this looks a lot more like the blade of a sword. And so I'm going to hit finish sketch. But we're still not done because we still need to give this blade a point. And we could start a new sketch and draw that diamond out again. But actually a really cool feature in OnShape is if you have a shape that you want to extrude and it's already the shape you have, you can just hit extrude again and select that face, and it'll automatically extrude the previous shape. And so I want this to go up 5 inches this time and hit enter. And I want it to draft inward or taper inward, so I'm going to go not outwards, but flip it the other direction, inwards. And if I look, it's not sharp. It's coming in like I want it to, but it's not sharp. So what happens if I make it 5 degrees? What happens? Hit enter, and it looks a little bit better, but it's still not enough. Let's double that. Let's make it 10 degrees inward. Hit enter, and that actually looks pretty good. It looks very much like the blade of a sword. And so let's hit finish sketch. And so now all we need is the guard and the handle. And so let's go to the bottom view, zoom in, and let's select this face, and let's start a new sketch on it. We'll look at it from the bottom, and I'm going to find my rectangle tool. Now, you'll notice as I hover over this shape, it tries to highlight previous lines and lock onto it. To avoid that, I'm going to draw my rectangle over here to the top left, and I'm going to then, after I'm done constraining it, center it back to the middle, like how we did with the diamond earlier. And so once I have my rectangle sketched, I'm going to find my dimension tool, and I'm going to tell it to be 5 inches wide, and I'm going to tell it to be 1 inch tall. Right-click Escape Dimension, and I'm going to drag this up a little bit away from that diamond. And to allow me to center this rectangle, I'm going to again use construction lines. And so I'm going to select my line tool and select construction. And I'm going to find the center of this side of the rectangle. When it highlights, I know I'm there. I'm going to click and drag all the way over here. And again, you'll see that little box highlight, so I know I'm at the center of the sides of the rectangle. And I don't want to draw off of this line, so I'm going to hit right click and escape my line. And if when you right click it moves your screen around, that's fine. You can just hit bottom again and it will recenter. Then I'm going to grab my line tool again and grab my construction line again. And I'm going to do the exact same thing from the top. I'm going to find the center of this rectangle left to right, drag it down, and find the center of this rectangle left to right on the bottom. I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard this time, find my point tool, put it down right at the intersection of these two lines. And I'm going to tell that point to be coincident with my origin. And now we have a fully constrained rectangle. And so I'm going to finish my sketch. I'm going to change my view so I can see what's going on. I'll zoom in. I'm going to hit extrude and select my rectangle. Now, you'll notice that the diamond doesn't come out with it naturally. To fix that, all you need to do is select that diamond as well, and it will come out as well. And I do want it to be 1 inch, but let's say you hit the check mark before you select that diamond. So let me show you what that would look like. If I hit extrude, I hit that rectangle, and I did not select that diamond, and I hit the check mark. I could undo and redo it, or I can go back into that extrusion by right-clicking on it and hitting edit, and then finding that diamond and selecting it, and it will now add to the extrusion as well. And hit check, and now I have my guard of my sword. And so if I zoom out, I can see how it's looking, and it's looking pretty good. But now all we need to do is add the handle. And so I'm going to right click on this bottom face and go to new sketch, change my view to my bottom view, and I'm going to draw a handle shape. And we could just grab our circle and put it down. But if I think about the handle of a sword, it's usually not round. It's usually flat on the top and the bottom and rounded on the sides. And so to draw that, let's grab our line tool and let's draw above our origin a line. Hit escape, grab our line again, and draw below our origin on our shape. And then to make sure these lines line up, let me grab my line tool again and turn on construction lines. I'm going to connect these two dots, and I'm going to connect these two dots with construction lines because I don't want them to actually affect my shape. Then I'm going to find my vertical constraint, and I'm going to select my two construction lines. Lastly, I'm going to find my 3-point arc tool, and I'm going to connect these two dots and draw an arc out. And I'm going to hover until I see this little tangent constraint pop up. When I see that, I'm going to click. Then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. I'm going to click on the top and click on the bottom, drag my arc tool out, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about when I say make sure that tangent shows up. You can see when the radius hits this construction line, a little tangent constraint pops up right there. When I see that, I'm going to click. That way I know my arc tool is tangent into my line. And if you're not sure, you can grab your tangent tool and add it to the arc and the line. And we can do it to this line and this arc as well. And I can do it on the bottom sides as well, just to be sure. I can add it here and here, and then hit escape on my keyboard. And so hopefully you can kind of see this handle that I'm trying to sketch here. To give you a better idea, I'll go to my dimension tool, and I'm going to tell from one side to the other to be 0.75 inches. Let's see how that looks. Hit enter, and it might not look like a handle now. I then want to go from the bottom to the top and add a dimension and tell this to be 0.5 inches. And hopefully now this looks more like the shape of a handle that you could grasp to wield this sword. Then I want to grab my line tool and activate construction. And I want to hover over this line until I find the center, click and drag all the way to the other edge and find the center and click. Then grab my point tool. I'm going to find the center of this construction line and put a point down. And lastly, I'm going to go to my coincident constraint and tell these 2 points to be the same point. And I have a fully constrained sort of oval shape. We actually call this shape a slot. Let's go ahead and change our view. And I'm going to zoom in, finish my sketch, and hit extrude. Click on this oval shape, this slot shape, and start dragging it down. And hopefully by now you can see how it looks like a handle. I'm going to change the depth to be 8 inches long. Hit enter, hit OK, and change my view to my isometric view. And there's our sword. We are finished with this shape.